Today is the fourth week, the final week in this month-long series that has been based on the season of nonviolence, the season of peace and nonviolence. It begins January 30th, which is the date of the assassination of Gandhi, and it ends in May, the assassination of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. And so those 64 days in between are dedicated to peace and nonviolence, not simply as an idea, but as a practice. And so we've looked at how do we cultivate that practice in our life under the context of courage. We talked the first week about courage, how that relates to bringing about peace. And then we talked about our communication and how that brings about peace. Last week we talked about compassion, which you certainly can't really talk about peace without talking about compassion. And today we talk about commitment. Now, commitment is often seen as that 10-letter word that is treated like a 4-letter word or a bad word. I remember one time seeing a caption, a cartoon, and the caption said, "The Evolution of Commitment." And it had a young teenage boy. He was walking into a card shop, and he said, "I need to pick out a card for the perfect girlfriend." And the person went over and she said, "This is our top-selling card, and it simply says, 'To the one and only girl I love.'" And he said, "That's perfect. I'll take 6 of those." Hence the evolution of commitment. That commitment is really something that we grow into. The definition of commitment is a state or quality of being dedicated, a sincere and enduring investment of oneself. To invest ourselves. If you take a minute and think about one major accomplishment that you have accomplished in your life that makes you feel good about yourself, proud of yourself. Think about one thing. And if you think about that on a scale from 1 to 10, how has your commitment been regarding that one thing? Those things that bring us the greatest joy, the greatest sense of accomplishment, that help us feel good about who we are things that we've really been able to commit our best self. We've committed ourselves to bringing those things about, no matter what it may be. The question commitment is really asking us is where and how and why am I investing myself? Because you see, to invest your individual self is also to invest your higher self potential. That whatever we put ourselves into, we have the capacity to putting the allness of God into. And so when we think about commitment, how and where and why are we investing ourselves? Most of you are probably familiar with that parable in the Bible that's found in the Gospel of Matthew. It's often referred to as the parable of the talents. If you remember the way the story goes, it says that there was a king who called 3 workers. And he gave the first worker 5 talents, and he said, "Go and use this which I have entrusted in you." He gave the second one 2, and he said, "I entrust these to you. Go and use them." He gave the third one 1. He said, "I entrust this to you. Go and use it." And then he came back after some time to ask them how they were doing with what had been given to them. And the first one said, "Well, you gave me 5, and now I have 10. And the king said, "Well done." And the second one said, "You gave me 2, and I have doubled it. Now I have 4. And he said, "Well done." And the third one said, "Well, you gave me 1, but I was afraid. I was afraid of you. I was afraid I would not know what to do, and so I hid it. I hid it to protect it. So here it is. Here's the 1 back." And as the story goes, the king got very angry and punished that man. Now, stories like that are often why we don't read the Bible, because they don't make a lot of sense at times. And we wonder, what is that really saying? Well, you have to realize it applies on a metaphysical level, or a level that is a universal truth. It is saying that we've all been given our life, our time, our talents, our ability. That every person has what's unique. You see, one had 5, one had 2, one had 1. It's telling us right off the bat, don't compare yourself to anybody else. Pay attention to what you've been given. But the way the universe works, the universe can only use what you give it to work with. So that the man who had been given his life, he had the one talent. The point of the story is we can only use the universe, God, G-O-D, the grand overall designer, can only use what we give, what we put out to be used. And so that story is teaching that we can't out of fear bury it or hide it or compare ourselves to anybody else. And so commitment is asking us to say, where and how and why in my life am I being called to commit? And are there areas that I'm asking to step up my commitments? Are there areas in my life that maybe I'm overcommitted? Maybe I'm spending my time, as the reading said, as the proverbial tail wagging the dog, that I'm so committed in things that I don't really want to be doing. And so today we use the opportunity to really take a deep breath and to look at our own relationship with commitment and to ask ourselves, how is it working for us, and how do we begin to realize that our commitments are a commitment of our life energy? It's what we give ourselves to, what we pour ourselves into, and are we really pouring ourselves into the things that we would like to energize and create? And where are the opportunities for us to shift? There's a couple of quotes that I wanted to share with you. The first one is from the Buddha, who says, "There are only two mistakes one can make along the road to truth: not going all the way, and not starting." The second one is by Rick Warren, who says, "Nothing shapes your life more than the commitments you choose to make." Choose is a really important word here. Your commitments can develop you or they can destroy you. But either way, they will define you. Tell me what you are committed to, and I'll tell you what you will be in 20 years. We become whatever we are committed to. So when we think about commitment, when I was in Hawaii, I studied the Hawaiian language, and I had an opportunity to work with some of the kahunas, the teachers, because I like I like all different spirituality. I believe that every spiritual tradition is seeking to point us in the same direction. So often we confuse the finger that's pointing or the words that are written with the message that is seeking to be conveyed. But the Hawaiians have a beautiful way of their indigenous teachings. And when it comes to commitment, would you show me the next slide? There's a word that they use called Onipa'a. Would you say that with me? Onipa'a. Onipa'a. Translated, it means a number of things. First and foremost, it's used to mean steadfast. Onipa'a. It means that you're steadfast in your commitments. But the beautiful thing about this, the image, would you back up one? The image that is used for Onipa'a is always an individual standing on a mountain. Because they believe that there are four things that go into commitment. That these four things are always growing us and shaping us. You see, we are shaped by our commitments. We are grown by our commitments. We are supported by our commitments. And our commitments give shape to our life. Our commitments grow us. Our commitments stretch us. Our commitments support us. So they believe that it's a whole being experience that consists of four things. That commitment has to do with the head, the heart, the hands, and the mountain. I want to share with you how they look at that. The first thing, Onipa'a, the head has to do with steadfast mind and how we use our mind. How many of you have ever said of yourself or someone else the term fear of commitment? They have a fear of commitment, or I have a fear of commitment. It's a really popular phrase. And it's an important phrase because commitment is something to be taken very seriously, and so often we can have fear around it. But fear of commitment is not, our commitments aren't meant to hold us back. Our commitments are meant to set us free. And so our mind is the first place that we have to start when we decide if I'm going to be committed to something. Whether it is to learn to read one book, or to write a book. All of those take different levels of commitment. And so it all begins with the thought and the willingness to make a commitment. Would you show me the next slide? There's a Zen saying that says, if you commit to nothing, you will be distracted by everything. Can anybody attest to that? I remember Stephen Covey, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. He talked about your priorities. He said, you don't prioritize your schedule. You need to schedule your priorities. And it's a play on words, but it's a very powerful shift in how we approach life. And so our commitments always begin in our mind and what we're thinking about in our mind. Would you show me the next slide? The next slide, this comes from Romans, and it says, I want to do what is right, but I can't. I want to do what is good, but I don't. I don't want to do what is wrong, but I do it anyway. Has anybody ever gone on a diet? Are you following what the author is talking about? You want to do, you say, I'm going to do this, and then you find yourself at the buffet for the third time. I have discovered this principle of life, that when I want to do what is right, I inevitably do what is wrong. I love God's law with all my heart, but there's another power within me at war within my own mind. You see, what this is speaking about is what we all know to be true, that we need mental power. You need to direct your thoughts to what it is you want to do, and you are well aware that sometimes that just doesn't seem to be enough. And so it's definitely important. We have to direct our mind. It's a part of commitment. And then we also need to be willing to realize that there sometimes feels like a war going on inside of us. I want this. I want to be on a diet. I want to work out at the gym. I want to learn how to play this instrument. And yet I also want to do all these other things that seem to undermine these things. How many of you realize that on a daily basis? Yeah, it's absolutely a part of life. So the Hawaiians would say that when we find ourselves in that conundrum, would you show me the next slide? That we are in a place to now move into our heart. That our heart is about steadfast passion. That the mind is keeping our mind, our intention set and focused. But then we also need to have passion. Because it's really hard to be committed. Have you ever noticed that if you lose for passion for something, you tend to stop whatever it was you were trying to accomplish? That it really takes discipline, and we need passion to keep going in that particular direction. I have a friend who told me that he was on the phone one day, and he was getting ready to take his son to a softball practice. And he was on the phone, and he said, I need to get off the phone because I have to take my son to baseball practice or softball practice. And he said his little boy, who was 6 years old, he just watched his little face drop. And when he hung up the phone, he said, Dad, you don't have to take me. Mom can take me. And the father said it felt like a dagger in his heart. And he said he stopped right then, and he said, no, son, I'm sorry. He said, I don't have to take you. I get to take you. And this man told me that something in him shifted, that he began to think about in his life, how many places did he say, I have to do this? He said, if I admitted it to myself, even my relationship with my own son felt like an obligation at a lot of time. And he said, but that day when I saw my son's face, that little 6-year-old face, go from excitement to, you don't have to take me, Dad. He realized, I need to constantly be connected with my passion. I need to remember, I get to take my son. Yes, I have a busy schedule. Yes, I have a lot to do. But where is my passion? What really matters most? He said that reframing that one thing, learning to say, I'm choosing to do this. I've decided to do this. I get to do this. I have the opportunity. Rather than I have to do this. So one of the things the Hawaiians would ask us would be to look at, when do we say things like that? I have to do that. And what are we really saying? And to become more clear and intentional with our language, I'm choosing to do this. You see, where is the power when we say, I have to do this? It's in the thing outside of us because we're enslaved to it. Where is the power when we say, I'm choosing to do this? It's within. And when we say, I get to do this, that's a choice on happy steroids. You know, we just elevated it. I get to do this. I get to do this. So our head, our heart, the third one, Onipa'a. The third one is about steadfast action. Commitment definitely requires practice. Anyone that has ever walked into a 12-step program has realized that they're going to be in a practice for the rest of their life. But if they take action every day for the rest of their life, those actions will give them their life back. You see that when we take actions, it's not coming from that place of, I have to, I'm obligated, but I'm choosing to. That what are the actions that we're choosing to take? Some of you have heard me share this story in our individual groups, but I learned a real powerful lesson in commitment and how it involves the head, the heart, and action. Back when I first found unity. When I first found unity in the early 90s, I left the Pentecostal church. I'd been on my own, finding my way, and it's as if the universe became my teacher. As many of you probably experienced, the first time I walked into a unity church, it was in Raleigh, North Carolina, and I heard what they were saying. I cried the whole service. I could not believe there were a group of people saying the things that I had come to believe. And so very quickly I discovered there were 2 unity churches in Raleigh. I went to one at 9 o'clock and one at 11 o'clock. I was committed. I wanted to learn to soak it up. I traveled with my job. I usually was gone every Monday through Friday, flying somewhere. But I'd be home on the weekend, and I went faithfully for probably about 6 months. And I was so intrigued. I wanted to learn more. I was deepening my desire, my passion, which was calling me to deepen my commitment. So I found out there was this place called Unity Village, this headquarters. And I decided I would go. I took 2 weeks vacation and went for classes. Well, during the classes, I talked to people who went to unity churches all over the United States and even outside of the United States. And I remember I had a conversation with a woman from Detroit, and she said, we have an African-American praise choir, and we have great music in our church. Well, at the time, the 2 unity churches where I were attending, they were singing out of a hymnal, and there was no band. It wasn't really, the music was bad. Cut that from the video. Wasn't that great? And I grew up with praise and worship and lively music. Everybody in my family played, sang an instrument. We had 3 trumpets that played 3-part harmony. I mean, I thought the whole world was in harmony. So going back to church and it being not so good was really hard for me. So when I'm at Unity Village, I'm talking to all these people from all other churches, and they're telling me about their great music. 3 different times a person said, well, maybe you can do something about it. The 3rd time in the course of 2 weeks that those exact words were said, maybe you can do something about it. Something inside, you know, when you get those little feelings. So I finished up my 2 weeks of classes, flew back on a Saturday, went to my 9 o'clock church, which is Unity of the Triangle, opened up the bulletin. There was a full-page insert for music director wanted. I didn't hear anything the minister said. I thought, oh my God, I've just been talking about music. Here's this full-page insert. But I read it. They wanted someone that played the piano or the guitar, and they were professionally trained. None of those. I played the alto saxophone in junior high school. There was no way I was going to lead a congregation, and I didn't even read music at the time very well. So I thought, well, I can't do this. But you know, when your head and your heart are marching in the same direction and you just feel inside that there's something for you to do. So the next morning, I happened to be in town that next Monday. I got up that Monday morning, I had my prayer and meditation time. It came right back to me, and I said, all right, universe, if this is for me to do, I need a real clear sign. I want to run into today when I'm out and about the current music director, the board president, or the minister, mainly because they were the only 3 people I knew. I had seen them up on stage. So that day I was out and about in Raleigh. I ended up at Sam's Wholesale Club, checking out. And as I check out, I look up, and lo and behold, there stands the board president. I could not believe it. She was holding an ink cartridge, and I went over and I said, are you the board president of Unity? And she said, yes, and I started crying again. She probably thought I was crazy. But all of this had happened, and I honestly couldn't hardly believe it. So I went home, and I immediately called the church. The minister was in. He said, I'd like to talk to you. Could you come in right now? Drove over to the church. I sat down and I said, you probably don't know me. I've only been coming to your church, and I sit in the back, come in, leave because I'm going to the other church at 11. And I said, I just got back from Unity Village, and I see you need a music director. I can't do it, but maybe I could help in some way. He got out of his chair, and he walked over, and he said, congratulations, you're our new music director. I said, what part of that did you not understand? I can't do this. And he said, I recognize a God job written all over this. So then I did what any reasonable person would do. I went and signed up for piano lessons. Like that was going to help. But we changed the title to music coordinator because I sort of refused the title. But what I realized is if you're called to do something and you say yes, if your head and your heart line up, then you will be given the opportunity for action. And it's up to us whether we say yes or no. I had been given such an opportunity I could not say no. And so I said yes. And once I said yes, it upped my prayer life big time. I really had to trust. I started going out to the nightclubs to find the best singers I could find that had the best soul. And I was asking anybody to come in and be a part of the music program. Within 2 years, it just burst open. It grew because I didn't know how to do it, but I knew how to hold a vision. But what I realized, little did I know, that every class I had taken for 2 years, when I finally was guided and agreed to apply to ministerial school, I needed to have been working in a Unity church or involved for 2 years. How long do you think I was the music director? 2 years. The gentleman that replaced me was an African-American man who led the Martin Luther King Jr. Children's Choir for the whole Triangle area. That's the quality of the music program that church grew. I can't take credit. I can take credit for saying yes and doing my part. What I know to be true is that our spiritual community is on the brink of spiraling into our next stage of evolution, unity of the Blue Ridge. I also know that I can't do it, and not any one person can do it. But if we hold the vision and we align our mind, our heart, and our actions, and allow our commitments, however we're called here. Maybe you're called to be involved here more. Maybe you're called to be involved somewhere else. Maybe you're called to be more involved with your family. Maybe you're called to create something new. But I know that we're all being called to create together. Would you give me that music? The last slide, the mountain. You see, the main thing I learned about the commitment, Onipa'a, is when we align our head, our heart, our hands, and we remember the mountain. You see, what the mountain is the bigger picture. The mountain is your higher power, your higher self. That each and every one of us, whether it's making that commitment to quit a habit, to begin a new habit, to up what you're doing and how you're showing up in some way. The reason we're being called to commit is so that we can grow and become that channel. The season of nonviolence is dedicated in part to Gandhi. Gandhi was born in 1869 in India. He died at the age of 79 in 1948. Gandhi got married when he was 15 years old. He went to law school, but Gandhi was not a very successful person. He wasn't really that bright. He wasn't really that well-liked. He didn't stand out as being extraordinary in any way. He barely passed the bar, and when he started practicing law in India, he wasn't very successful. He was invited to help with a case in South Africa. And so he decided, maybe I can be more effective and more successful in South Africa. So he went to South Africa. He was just in his mid-20s, and he decided to stay in South Africa and try practicing law there. He needed to travel one day, and he bought a first-class ticket. He got on a train. And when the train made its first stop, a white South African came in and saw this brown-skinned man and said, "You can't be in first class." And Gandhi said, "But I bought and paid for my first class ticket." They began to argue, and the conductor said, "Sir," speaking to Gandhi, "you're going to have to get in the back of the train." Have we heard that story before? He refused, and they threw him off the train. In his 20s, he said he landed on the ground with his coat and his suitcase that they threw out on top of him, and he literally stayed there for hours. Because he said what happened in that moment, he began to identify with a predicament that was larger than himself. He began to identify with something that was not just about one man, it was about equality for all people. He got fired up in his soul. And what he chose to do that day on the ground, he made a commitment. And he said, to the God of my being, I will commit all that I am to the rights of all people. And he got up off the ground and he dusted himself off, and the rest is history. His life was attempted over six. He died on the 7th known assassination attempt. He was 78 years old going for his evening prayers. But the difference that one ordinary man made, because he identified with a bigger predicament, he identified with bigger possibility, which enabled him to identify with his higher self. His name was Mahatma Gandhi. It was changed to Mahatma Gandhi because Mahatma means great soul. You see, the beauty of this, I couldn't believe it when I began to research all of this. The Hawaiians believe that Onipa'a leads us to all be great souls. That as we ask, is my mind steadfast in my commitments? Is my heart steadfast in my commitments? Are my actions steadfast in my commitments? And is my stand on this mountain steadfast? And if so, I am showing up as a great soul. The song we want to anchor this in is by Karen Drucker, and it says, Stand. I'm going to do something a little different and ask you to stand. And to just feel the energy of these words as we sing this song. Let there be peace. I am a stand for peace. Let there be love. I am a stand for love. Let there be joy. I am a stand for joy. We are making a new world now. Let there be peace. I am a stand for peace. Let there be love. I am a stand for love. Let there be joy. I am a stand for joy. We are making a new world now. You got it. Let there be peace. I am a stand for peace. Let there be love. I am a stand for love. Let there be joy. I am a stand for joy. We are making a new world now. So as you stand, I'm going to invite you to close your eyes. And as you stand, to stand as uprightly as possible. To give thanks for the ability to stand. And that as we stand here and now, we stand with the realization of what it means to be able to stand for something. You see, we focus not on what we may think we are standing against, for that is to sidetrack us. That is to take our energy down the wrong train in the wrong direction. We stand firmly for that for which we stand. I am a stand. I am here for a divine purpose. When I am no longer needed, I will be taken from this realm. As long as I am here for divine purpose. It cannot be otherwise. That divine purpose requires commitment. It requires commitment of mind, of heart, of hands, of action, of attitude, of the entire being. It requires the commitment and the capacity to know that I am this divine instrument, this divine channel through which all that is does flow. That as I realize the bigger picture, as I identify with higher ideas, I become the instrument through which these ideas become manifest on earth. I become the way. As all master teachers have said, I am the way. This I am is the truth of all that you are. It is the essence of you before birth, before any identity, beyond any identity. It is all that you are. This I am. As you identify with this and with this higher Christ nature, the Buddha nature, the Atman, all that is, you become this instant in time where heaven is created on earth. I am a stand. Take a minute and in the silence, for yourself, think of 3 powerful things for which you stand. I am a stand for. I am a stand for. Would you whisper those words into this sacred circle? I am a stand for love, light, peace, truth. And as I stand for these things, I call upon my higher self, all that is, to grow me, to use me to anchor these on earth. I realize that as I ask, I will be given the opportunity. And each opportunity will ask me, where is my head, where is my heart, and where are my actions? And without any judgment, but simply realizing that it is my choice, I say yes. We also join together in standing for humanity. We stand for those who have asked us to hold them in prayer. If you have the name of anyone that you have been asked to hold into prayer, we ask that you speak that now into this sacred circle. Yeah. And as we hold these in our heart, we speak the words of this prayer. It is designed to help us anchor our heavenly potential in our daily earthly actions. Our Creator, which art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come. Thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses as we forgive those who trespass against us. Let us not be led into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory, forever and ever. Amen. Let us sing that again. I am a stand. Let there be peace. I am a stand for peace. Let there be love. Let there be joy. I am a stand for joy. We are making a new world now. Let there be peace. I am a stand for peace. Let there be love. I am a stand for love. Let there be joy. I am a stand for joy. We are making a new world now. One more time. Let there be peace. I am a stand for peace. Let there be love. I am a stand for love. Let there be joy. I am a stand for joy. We are